Congratulations to all three of you on careers, on momentous milestones, on awesome achievements.
Dan is the guy that had the idea of putting all this together. And without his foresight, In Ohio Country Today would not be anywhere. I don't want to let that pass by. Thank you for what you do.
Well, I couldn't do it without either one of you guys. Alan is the business owner and the active farmer. His knowledge about what's happening on the farm is invaluable to the program. And Gary, you have opened up so many doors. I can't begin to tell the audience how popular Gary is. Perfect example. Didn't matter what row we went down at Farm Science Review, someone would stop and say hi to Gary. And that was a great way of introducing them to our program. Kudos to both of you guys. And I love you both as brothers.
The In Ohio Country Today television program has been sharing the stories of Ohio agriculture and farm families for 20 years. The veteran farm broadcasters delivering those stories, though, they've been doing it a little bit longer. Dan Wilson, Gary Jackson, and Alan Davis draw on over 100 combined years of experience and Hall of Fame careers to share how In Ohio Country Today started and has grown, the changes they've experienced, and the memories they've carried with them along the way. That's all ahead on today's episode of Shooting the Shift. Hello and welcome to Shooting the Shift, a venture here at Shiftology Communication, where our team of communication professionals take time to share, reflect, and provide insights on what we do each and every day to help our clients reach more, convince more, and win more. I'm Dan Toland, Director of Virtual Experiences here at Shiftology, and we're glad you're joining us for today's episode titled 20 Years of In Ohio Country Today. All right, well, we're joined today by Dan Wilson from In Ohio Country Today, along with Alan Davis, co-host, and Gary Jackson. We have a lot of broadcasting experience in here today with us. Dan, can you give us a little bit of an introduction about who you are, who In Ohio Country Today is, and why we're having this conversation?
Well, a 43-year broadcaster, started in radio in Wapakoneta, Ohio. I started my own advertising agency after radio in 1991, but still doing broadcast projects. And then 20 years ago, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary. We started In Ohio Country Today TV show with just 3 stations, and now we're over 20 stations statewide. It's a weekly 30-minute broadcast. I produce a new show almost every week, and in the next 30 days, we will have our 1,000 episode. I couldn't do it without these two guys. Alan Davis, Alan Davis Insurance Agency. He's a business owner and active farmer. One of my first accounts when the boss man asked me if I wanted to get into sales was Alan Davis Insurance Agency. So in 1984, I got to meet Alan, and we've been friends ever since. Been a great connection to the ag community. Gary Jackson, the other co-host. Gary grew up in Ada, Ohio, comes from an ag background, and a 53-year broadcast veteran and well-known throughout the Buckeye State as far as his ag broadcasts are concerned. I've known Gary through radio for many, many years, so I'm really proud to be working with both of these guys.
It's just great being around so much experience. All 3 names very familiar in Ohio agriculture. Can we talk a little bit about how Dan Wilson got involved in Ohio agriculture? You're originally from Cleveland, correct? Tell me how'd this get going?
Well, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, but when I was 10 years old, we moved to Columbia Station, and we were known for 2 things in Columbia Station: golf courses and greenhouses. If you weren't working at a greenhouse, you're working on a golf course. And in our case, I'm one of 11 kids. All my sisters worked in the greenhouse. I worked on the golf course. I also have 2 sisters that married farmers. So I've got a quick experience on the difficulties and the challenges that our farmers face when it comes to raising their crops, livestock, and things like that. From an ag background, that's where I cut my teeth. And then, of course, in broadcasting, having various ag accounts also helped.
Take us back to the start of In Ohio Country Today. How'd you get started and decided that agriculture was going to be the direction you go?
With all due respect, there was a television show that was on the air for many, many years and went away. They didn't produce as many episodes as what I do today. But in its infancy, the 3 television stations that I started with said, hey, if you can do 18 to 20 new shows a year, we'll be happy. And actually, I produce between 47 and 50 new shows a year. And we are a paid program as far as commercial advertising is concerned. You have to pay for that slot. So having the right advertisers behind you to help support you is what it's all about. So I went to Alan Davis and I said, Al, I've got this idea. What do you think? And he was 110% behind it. In fact, he helped line up a couple of really nice key accounts that helped get us started. It was a challenge at the beginning, but like I said, it's the only television show of its kind in the Buckeye State that's about farming families, agriculture, agribusiness that's produced in Ohio. So I'm really proud of that. Couldn't do it without Alan Davis to start.
Alan liked it so much, he became a part of the whole darn thing. So Alan, what did you enjoy most about it?
Well, I've been doing insurance for 41 years and been farming all my life. Grew up on a dairy farm and still have livestock to this day. So agriculture is what I really have known forever. I'm pretty good at insurance too. but really that's how that started. When Dan said, hey, I got this idea, what do you think? I said, I can help you come up with content. You produce it. He said, I could produce it and put it all together. We started and I've been involved for the last 20 years. It's fun. I like when I get a chance to be out and talk with maybe other producers, get to interview folks who do ag technology. I've been pretty fortunate to be able to contribute. I told Dan this the other day. I said I was the Y. This gentleman came up to me and he said, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I watch your show every week. You're Alan Davis. I'm like, yeah. I said, well, thank you. I'm glad you watched the show, right? So this was at 6:30 in the morning at the YMCA. I'm glad people watched the show and that we can provide them information and give them a different perspective or help them understand what they see going on. A lot of folks live in the rural areas, but maybe they didn't even grow up on a farm or they're 2 or 3 generations removed. So we can educate folks. I think that's one of the rewards, if you would, from the TV show.
Gary, you ever have any experiences like that in your 50 plus years?
When I think back about the people I have met, and sometimes, you think about all the important people, the people that are in the news, the people that are part of the administration in Washington that have come through. People I remember are the little 9-year-old boy at the Paulding County Fair that I sat down in the grass with to make him less afraid of a microphone so he would do an interview with me. His mom and dad were standing to the side and we talked a little bit while they talked. And then that interview has been mentioned more times over the years. A 9-year-old boy that could give me his complete feed ration for the feeder calf that he was bringing to the fair. And it was amazing because there were a lot of 19-year-old kids that couldn't do that. But he knew what it was all about and just bringing that kind of information to people over the years. That's something that I remember all the time.
Fantastic. Dan, do you remember the first episode?
The first episode we actually did. Alan actually has a connection to it, the Buckeye Farm Antique Show. We did a story from the Utica Ice Cream Festival, which was connected to the service club that Alan and I were part of, the Utica Sertoma Club Ice Cream Festival. That first episode also included stories from the Hot Air Balloon Fest in Middletown, Ohio, where my son did some interviews with indigenous tribes to Ohio that had a setup at the festival to educate people about the people that lived in Ohio a couple hundred years ago. So it was a really cool episode. I was really proud of it, and it just really springboarded from there. Alan touched on it and Gary touched on it a little bit. We focus on farmers and farming families. We talk a lot about production agriculture. We talk about how you could be more efficient and more profitable on your farm. We also talk to agribusinesses, but we also talk about where your food comes from. And this is where our show has shined because of the response that we get from people who live in the city. We're on in Columbus. The response that we get from people in the city is amazing because educating them about where their food comes from the field to the plate, is really what it's all about.
You've all been involved in this for a long time. What has changed, I guess, in the way that maybe we go about the job that you're doing, or the stories or the topics that we've had to cover? What have been some of the biggest changes you've seen over time, I guess, throughout your entire broadcasting careers, but specifically in Ohio country today as well?
From when we started to things that are important to people now, the topics have changed, if you would. To now, I would say that they want to know where their food comes from. They want to know how it was produced, how the animals are taken care of, but they also are concerned about the environment, environmental safety
Yeah,
concerns,
no question about it.
you
Yeah.
know, water quality, right? I think that to me would be one of the largest shifts that we've seen in content that we cover, right?
I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact 20 years ago when we started this, I would have never thought about giving any kind of a report about turf. And one of my greatest interviews that I did was with my son, Ben, who is a head groundskeeper for the Columbus Crew. And he's shown me things that they're doing with machines. If it's been raining, he's pushed buttons in his car to drain the field and or put more
Don't you
water
mean
in if it's
don't you mean the pitch, Gary?
that's true, Dan. That's true.
Get it right, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for making sure nobody forgets that in my home.
From an agricultural standpoint, it was really neat to see how they maintain the pitch, how they keep it in such consistent condition, and the necessity of keeping it at such a high level, quality wise, to protect the players.
It's agriculture, but a lot of agriculture these days, the way it's changed, people don't think of it. And kids, check with your recruiter, your high school recruiter, and your the college or the trade school that you're thinking about going to, and get some different ideas that might be able to point you in different directions that could be fantastic careers for you and your family.
Technology, I think, is such a huge thing that's changed in the last 20 plus years.
People are intrigued with it, right? 20 years ago, somebody would have said, well, you just sit in the seat, the thing's gonna drive itself, and it's gonna be perfectly straight rows, and you're going to load a prescription in your system that as you go across the field, it will vary the population of your seed based on soil type and fertility. And oh, by the way, if you get to the end when you want to turn, it knows exactly where it's already planted, so it's going to shut off so it doesn't waste any seed, right? You can't overplant it. If somebody would have told me that 20 years ago, I'm like, yeah, okay, well, we'll see. I compare it to Maxwell Smart and Get Smart. He would have his phone in his shoe. When he was doing that, people were like, that's not going to happen. That'll never happen, right? Okay, well, guess what? It's also an animal husbandry. And we did a story on robotic milkers. Those are amazing. The cow comes in and it will actually know if that cow is going to have oncoming illness. It can detect that and literally not put the milk in the tank. It can sense that in the milk before it really starts, right? And so animal health, animal husbandry, I think that's just one aspect. I mean, there's a lot more in poultry, hogs. As far as how Dan does his job, I'm sitting here thinking about that too, right?
Yeah, from the cameras to the edit process to the computers that are used, that whole technology has changed. It really was very arduous to produce a show because you're not only inputting the video, but you're also putting in maybe some B-roll that you shot on the side. You have to put in the titles. You have to make sure it times up because I have to finish at 28 minutes and 30 seconds for all my affiliates. In addition to the fact of how it's shipped to them, Alan would remember when I'd be blowing by his house on my way to FedEx because I got to get my DVDs to my affiliates on a Thursday night to get overnight to the station so they could run it that weekend. And now it's just simply uploading it to my affiliates, which saves me time and money. But the technology that's used in the edit process has just been phenomenal.
And Gary,
You
I
know,
can't even imagine what you're thinking, from where you started.
Well, I started in radio. I tried to mix as much audio sound taping at that time with just reading what I had put together. And rule of thumb was for every hour that you produced, that was like 5 minutes of on-air time. So you had to spend a lot of time doing that together. And then computers came along, and it was, I don't know how many days I just stood around and looked and with my mouth open about what computers could do to shorten the time. One thing builds on another, builds on another, builds on another. Gosh.
Gary and I will remember those days when we used to do reel to reel, and the way we edited our audio was with a straight blade razor, and you'd have to find the point where the edit was, make the splice, put the splice tape on, make sure that you didn't miss anything. And now from an audio standpoint, I do that every day with my ag reports for iHeartMedia. That it's just a timeline down at the bottom of the screen, and I could just go in there and slice it out and have it done within minutes, sometimes seconds.
Speaking of iHeartMedia, can you just give us an overview of the landscape of the growth and where you're at now?
Since we started with TV, the next thing for us was to find a way to utilize those segments outside of our affiliate with the advent of YouTube and allow those segments to be seen all over the world, if you will. The next thing is the advent of podcasts. So we added a podcast to that whole mix. At the same time, I had a relationship with WHIO down in Dayton to use the podcast content as much as possible to develop a radio show on a weekly basis on Sunday mornings. And then 3 years ago, iHeartMedia came to me and said, we'd like for In Ohio Country Today to do our daily ag reports. So I produce 4 ag reports daily. The alarm goes off at 4:30, so I do one in the 5 o'clock hour, the 7 o'clock hour, the 11 o'clock hour, and the 3 o'clock hour, a minute and a half each. We started with 22 stations. We're up to 25. We added a new FM affiliate in Dayton, an FM affiliate, WCOL in Columbus, and we're adding WTAM out of Cleveland. So the ag reports themselves are also growing throughout the state. We're really proud of how the brand has grown over the 20 years, from the TV station to the YouTube channel, radio show, podcast, and now the iHeartMedia Ag Report. It's been a great ride so far.
What are some of the most memorable moments about In Ohio Country Today?
We've done a lot of interviews with farming youth, and it is so encouraging to me every time we interview somebody that's in FFA or 4-H, the enthusiasm and the intelligence. We need more youth involved in agriculture. But the diversity of agriculture and the opportunities for the youth is more than sitting behind a combine or sitting behind a tractor. I mean, everything from drip irrigation to various types of techniques that people are using, whether it's a greenhouse technique or whatever, it gives them more opportunity to be involved in the ag industry than the traditional avenues that we grew up on.
To piggyback on that, agriculture for so many years, would get stereotyped. This is what you're going to do, right? To me, it's always great to interview these kids. And it's not necessarily about being in the hog barn, about being in the dairy barn. It's about using technology and being a computer geek to develop your maps and to do all those kind of things. Obviously, it's the largest industry in Ohio. It's not the largest industry because everybody's farming. There's all the support stuff that goes with it. We try to do our best to also educate folks with that. Like Dan says, the enthusiasm when you interview these kids, it's kind of cool.
When I first started, the average age of a farmer was 59 and a half years. And over time, whenever they would put new data together, the average age of a farmer was right around 59 years of age. So we still have that need for the younger people to come along. But I think the younger mindset is entering into the equation. And I think we are seeing that newness or the education that you get no matter where you go to school. We have good schools all over the country. Ohio has so many good things to say about it as far as the organizations in the Buckeye State, the educational opportunities in the Buckeye State, how everybody works together. In some states, that's not the case. That's one thing that I was always proud of Ohio is the fact that the organizations, the education, the government in Ohio, the ODA, everybody pulled together for the common good of the farmer and agribusiness.
The other thing I wanted to mention, Dan, is several of the segments that are most memorable is the fact that we have always taken the time to salute our veterans, and doing segments with veterans who have come home back to the farm after World War II, after Korea, after Vietnam. Those segments are really super powerful. And I've been blessed to meet those individuals that served, and their stories were very powerful and a testament to the community, that agrarian work ethic that they took from the farm into combat and then back to the farm, that nose to the grindstone, nothing is going to deter them from success attitude. That was a real blessing, and it touched me deeply. Shout out to the Farmer Veteran Coalition, who we have celebrated for the last several years, and their connection to Central State University. That's the other thing. We always talk about Ohio State University. We always give them their due, but we've been blessed to have sponsors from Wilmington College from Findlay and currently with Central State University. It's a historically Black college university that is doing more for ag in urban areas. And those stories are very exciting too, and how they're transforming agriculture, not just from the rural areas, but bringing it back into the cities.
Speaking of Ohio ag colleges, we would be remiss if we did not mention that we are amongst some Hall of Famers today. Gary will be inducted into the Farm Science Review Hall of Fame this fall, and Alan into the Farmers Insurance President's Council Hall of Fame.
Actually, both have received their awards. Alan at a recent meeting, and Gary, we just recently had a dinner to celebrate, but it'll also take place in September. So, Alan, you're up first. It's a pretty cool honor.
I have been very blessed in this business. President's Council Hall of Fame, you have to be selected for 25 years, invited to the President's Council meeting. And to put a perspective on that, they have 12 or 13,000 agents that they have. There are about 120 or 130 that attend this on an annual basis. So you're at 0.5%. You have to be invited. There are requirements and there are things that you have to do. Take care of your clients and be invited 25 times. Prior to my induction, there were only 11 agency owners that had done that in the 100-year history of the company. So it's not necessarily always about contributions to farmers insurance. It's about your contributions to the industry and how you help the good of the whole, and professional associations and a lot of things like that. So it's quite humbling. It was a great event. My oldest son actually did my introduction. He did an outstanding job. I was very proud of him. It's just a great event.
Gary Jackson, too, his induction into the Hall of Fame for Farm Science Review, as well as Alan's induction into the Hall of Fame, a testament to their character. And I'm honored to be working with both of these guys. Gary, it was great seeing you up there and getting that award. Much deserved, for sure.
Well, thanks. Dan, I can honestly say that one of the few times in my entire life when Nick called me to tell me about it, I was totally speechless. And in fact, when he called, I said, hi, Nick. Is it time for us to schedule another time to come down and do interviews for pre-Farm Science Review? And he said, no, I'm calling for something different this time. So, quite an honor. I just think of all the people that I hold as heroes in agriculture and all the names that have come before me. I guess that's why I have trouble talking right now about all of that. It was a complete surprise. It was very much an honor. I think it was right around 1975 was my first Farm Science Review. So this year is my 50th anniversary of attending Farm Science Review. So that's an honor in itself, and I thank God Almighty for letting me live on this earth all these years to meet quite a lot of just fantastic people. I've told people over the years that if you're involved in agriculture, we talked about work ethic, but there's something about being good, just having goodness run through you. And I will always say that people from the farm are the salt of the earth.
Spoken like a true ag Hall of Famer. So we do want to say congratulations to both Gary and Alan and Dan, all three of you on careers, on momentous milestones, on awesome achievements.
If I could interrupt, Dan is the guy that had the idea of putting all this together. And without his foresight, in Ohio country today would not be anywhere. Dan, thank you for having the foresight of putting a salesperson who sells insurance for farmers and non-farmers, putting together a farm or ag communicator with the knowledge that you have with technology to make this show what it is today. I don't want to let that pass by. Thank you for what you do.
Well, I couldn't do it without either one of you guys. I mean, Alan is the business owner and the active farmer. His knowledge about what's happening on the farm on a day-to-day basis is invaluable to the program. And Gary, you have opened up so many doors. I can't begin to tell the audience out there how popular Gary is. Farm Science Review is a perfect example. Didn't matter what row we went down, what street we went down at Farm Science Review, someone would stop and say hi to Gary. And that was a great way of introducing them to our program and what we're trying to accomplish. Kudos to both of you guys. And I love you both as brothers.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
And Dan, how can people learn more about In Ohio Country today and hear all these stories?
Alan Davis does some great things for farmers when it comes to protecting your assets. So give Alan a call at 419-738-7447 or check him out on the web at alandavisinsurance.com. Gary Jackson and I, we're tag team, and you can find us anywhere across the Buckeye State where we're doing stories. For more information about In Ohio Country today, Gary, you can always check us out on the web at inohiocountry.com.
And we'll also have opportunities if you want to wish In Ohio Country Today a happy 20th anniversary via video recordings for opportunities to be shown on the show. Be on the lookout for that. We will be posting that along with this podcast. Again, we thank all three of you for joining today. Congratulations on 20 years and wonderful careers and telling the stories of Ohio agriculture and Ohio farm family. You know, there's no shortage of Ohio agriculture stories to tell, but it's not very often you get to hear the stories of those who tell. We here at Shiftology thank Dan, Gary, and Alan for being storytellers for Ohio's farms and farm families, and we extend a heartfelt congratulations and a happy 20th anniversary to In Ohio Country Today. And you all are invited to do the same. Just click or visit the link posted with the show or scan the QR code on your screen, and you'll be able to record a quick personal congratulatory video clip that can appear on an upcoming episode of In Ohio Country Today. As always, you can also visit shift-ology.com to learn more about how we can help you and your business reach more, convince more, and win more. On behalf of the entire gang here at Shiftology, I'm Dan Toland saying thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Shooting the Shift.